Hello everyone, welcome to Cardiff Fantasy Hammer's first video. We're going to be going over the Rally the Allies event in Cardiff next weekend on the 4th or 5th, I think, of July.
It is on the 4th of July.
On the 4th. But just to give you an overview what this channel is going to be to start with, Ben, I, and maybe some others will be reviewing local Cardiff and Wales events in general, sometimes the surrounding area as well, I'm sure. Gonna do, pack reviews for tournaments as well as list reviews prior to the event, maybe some tournament breakdowns and how did it go afterwards. And just get a general idea of maybe how people are playing, what interests the community around things like comp and changes to the game. I know Ben's got some plans for future events as well.
Yeah, we're looking at more interesting list building options or mandatory requirements. So give take some edge off some of the meta lists, give people something fun to play with they wouldn't normally get to use.
Exactly, and
Lots to think
I
about.
think you've achieved that with this event as well. There's been a lot of questions about some of the list building, so we're going to try and clear some of those up with this video prior to the event, just to make sure everyone's crossed their T's and dotted their I's with the lists.
I will try and make them more simple for my benefit as well as theirs in future, because it can be a head scratcher. Some clarifications are probably needed, but hopefully we get that ironed out today after a
I,
quick chat.
regardless of the clarifications, I think it has made building lists fun. I know I'm really excited to play with my list next weekend. I think it's gonna be really good. It's something I wouldn't, you'd never normally get a chance to play with something like this, right? So should be good.
Yeah. I think you said before that there was an allies event and some people took some really screwy stuff and made it really, really not fun. But I've tried to adjust the comp in a way that allows you to bring more of the fun stuff. And the feedback I've had is that it looks like a proper Warhammer army instead of the usual spam here and there. So hopefully people get that feeling and enjoy it.
Definitely roll on next weekend. All right, let's go through some of the pack. We'll skip the first few slides around where it is. All of that is going to be available in the pack. You can download it through Firestorm's the Battlefield's website. We'll link it in the description. You can take a look yourself. There are 5 tickets left. So if anyone is free next weekend and wants to play with some toys they don't normally get to, highly encourage that you go and take a look.
Yep, would love to sell it. So hopefully we'll see you there.
All right, so let's go through these mustering army rules.
Yeah, so it's a 2,400 point list. 1,800 points for your main force, and then allied force is 600 points. I felt that gives the allied force a good chunk of the points. 2,000 points would probably not been enough. It's 2 separate forces, and that wording is used throughout the pack to try and make sure it's really clear that you're using a main force and an allied force.
Yeah, I think
Uh,
that helps a lot, right? To make sure there's a clear line, and this the basis of this idea, right, was that it's to try and help some newer people get into the game as well, right? You're able to buy this in two forms: a singles ticket where you play with all your toys and your allied force yourself, or bring a friend maybe who's newer or less experienced. They can bring a small allied force to come play and learn the game.
yeah, absolutely. So I know there's one team that's a doubles team. Like you said, a new player can come along if you've got a child or a family member that's into it, but not really, up to speed with the rules. You can help them out. It's great as well for a new player for tournaments. So someone that plays a lot but did not play the tournament, like a little taster of what to expect. So it's also given me a lot of scope to mess around with missions, which we'll come on to a bit later.
So this uses the matched play books, grand melee and combined arms. I'm sure most people listening to this video are probably familiar with them, but the way in which it affects this event specifically is that both of the armies, they're separate armies, they're both below 2,000 points, which means other than named characters, there are no level 4 wizards at this event. Level 3 is the best you're going to get, and it's only going to be in the main force. In the allied force, you don't have 1,000 points because you can only bring level 1 and 2 wizards. And then combined arms limits the number of duplicate units, just as you'd see in most games. And I don't think that affects the allies too much, only 600 points, but the main force is the same as usual.
Yeah, that's pretty much on the nose. I've added some additional comp to the allied force, which is the third bullet point on the Mustering Armies, which allows you to have some more freedom if you move outside of your faction. So no force can ally with the same force type. So if you've got Errantry Crusades, for example, you couldn't have an Errantry Crusade ally. It'd have to be Exiles or Kingdom of Bretonia. But if you moved away and went with Empire as your allies, you would have some additional benefits. So you would get to ignore any mandatory unit requirements in the allied force, and the core requirements would become 10% instead of the 25. So you've got things like Paladins, which are required in Errantry Crusade. If you add an Errantry Crusade ally in your Empire, you ignore that Paladin requirement. Same with Wood Elves, the mandatory Blade Guard. You can ignore that. Just bring the core unit you want, and 10% of it at that allows you to bring something a bit more fun in another part of the list.
Yeah, I think it's a good change. At 600 points, you want them to be able to play with their toys, right? And spending 150 of those points on core, and in some cases, a mandatory unit, so they're, at Knights Errant or Blade Guard, that can be quite punishing. You don't necessarily you lose a lot of choice then, right? And also the unit cap normally being 150. I think we'll get onto that in the comp section, but it's also been increased to allow you to bring some units that wouldn't normally fit in a 600 point army.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So you brought it up really early on, and I misunderstood, and I've had some other people ask. It's not actually that many points to build units with. So I made the choice to adjust your allied force spend to 50% of the force, so up to 300 points per unit. But you still have to abide by the percentage restrictions for your force. So that's the limiting factor, but you do get a bit more money if you need to.
Okay, and then on the second page, we've got some more Mustering Armies rules. And this is just trying to clarify what we've just gone over, right? Talking about which characters can join which units and the levels of trust between some of the allies.
Yeah, so there's a couple of links to the allied tables if you can't read it through the pack because you're on a mobile device or something. So I've linked it to a Google Sheet or PDF, depending on how you want to view it. But this is essentially a rip from the rulebook telling you what your allied contingent rules would be, depending on the type of ally you bring, which is reflected in the old school allied table below.
I think the main thing for people to be aware of is that trusted allies can use each other's wizards. That's the biggest benefit. Uneasy means that you effectively get quite a big buff in that your allies are considered levies, so you don't your chimera doesn't run off the table because the Knights Errant died next to them. That type of thing, but you are limited in how wizards can affect each other. And then suspicious is like nobody likes these guys, Skaven or Dark Elves. If you flee through them, it goes wrong as they attack you, or leadership debuffs around them in an area.
I think you're right. I think there are some interesting combinations to have. I've tried to remain as true to the rule books as I possibly could. Obviously, it's impossible with the legacy factions. Maybe that'll change in the future if they get brought on board or the renegades make them more specific. But I might even go a bit more rogue in the future if I did another allied event and make them more specific again. So different types of factions, like Arcane Journal factions, like other types of faction more than others. A bit more flavor to it. It's just quite complicated as it is. So adding that added complication might melt more brains, which is what I'm trying to avoid.
I think now that Renegades are getting more fleshed out, they are coming with updated allies tables. But a lot of them is sticking to the similar lines as to what the old world has done so far. So sadly, all of us Empire players aren't going to get to play Sylvanian humans with our vampire brothers. That'd be cool. Maybe one day, but let's keep it simple for now.
Hey, look, when we get to the table, Empire models are perfect for Renegade Crowns. Bring them as Renegade Crowns, So you can still bring your vampire thralls along if you want. Just not under the guise of the Empire, I guess.
Yeah, let's take a quick look at the table. There's a lot of information here. It's worth going through yourself to look at the kinds of lists that you'd want to build or be excited about seeing. Obviously, the good guys mostly like each other. The only suspicious ones are normally wood elves because people, they're a bit dodgy. The ravening hordes or ravaging hordes, they're a lot less trustworthy of one another. They can still all ally with one another, but they're not necessarily happy about it. And then Legacy is sort of what you'd expect, right? Renegade Crowns and Ogres being mercenaries can ally with almost everyone except demons and lizard men. I think Renegade Crowns can even ally with lizard men.
Yeah, I've tried to allow like the more mercenary factions to be able to do that. You'll notice that the trend is that the Renegade Crowns, they're uneasy with, or they're trusted with the good factions. And then I think I went the other way with the Ogre Kingdoms. Oh no, I lie. I changed it back. I went uneasy across the board pretty much.
Ogre Kingdoms are, everyone hires them as mercenaries. Everyone's always got an Ogre mercenary in their back pocket. That's their whole thing. I do love that the only people that they trust are the other mercenaries in Renegade Crowns, though. I think that's a really good idea.
Yeah, the way you read the table though is your main force goes on the left as it's titled, and then you look across for your allied force. There are some. I did make some decisions around vampire counts in their current form because they're pretty potent as a force on the table, and so I limited them to who they could ally with and kept it pretty hard line, unfortunately, for the vampire players. So you're not getting a free run with them. And the demons just make sense. Like demons don't really pop up for everyone, and so only the chaos factions really get an opportunity to use them. So I've tried to keep it a little bit themed where I had some creative license that weren't really prescribed. I also gave the wood elves a bit of a bump by letting them ally with dwarves. Even though they shouldn't, I made them trusted because needs must. It might give them a leg up. The wood elf players might like to have some heavy guns to
Just
bring along to the
another option, right? Like they got something to do.
Yeah, something to help them out that isn't the usual affair.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good. I believe there is one more section for mustering armies, and it's a section of links. They talk about painting points, modeling, how you should act at the event, as well as some links to slight rules changes in some comp, an FAQ, which is player asked questions, which will be having its last update in 2 days' time, Ben, unless GW drop a giant FAQ on us this weekend. But we'll both be at a stag do, so neither of us are going to read it.
It'll be a Sunday morning job for me. The FAQ, if we get one before Saturday, will be in play. I want people to be excited, and there's nothing worse than paying the money and then having an FAQ drop, and you're excited for a week but have to play the old rules. So we will chuck it in. I will adapt the FAQ in the comp if it's massive and it does fix some of the problems. So they are flexible in that regard. So it's worth keeping an eye on that if it does drop. But otherwise, it's all been put in one. All the rules for the event have been put in one place for you to get a quick look at. Painting points. You'll notice that if you're building a second faction, you don't have to have it painted, and you won't get full penalty of points. 3 color minimum standard. Objective markers are clarified. legacy faction link. I'm gonna have to. I can't adjust that link unfortunately because the pack's PDF, so that'll be in the comp pack and the FAQ pack, the Renegade version 2, which we're using. Yeah, and then your list link in New Recruit, which you can get to through that hyperlink there because it's a private event.
Yeah, I think that in the comp pack there is already a link to Renegades V2, and it's important to note as well, Renegades is mandatory for this event. So in the cases that where there are some small nerfs around ogre cannons and vampires, you are taking the nerf, so to speak. All Renegades rules are mandatory.
Yeah, and I think the guys within the square base team, like Val, he's put a lot of effort in. He's brought things up as well as knocked some things down. So ogre players might decide Yetis are on the menu, right? They're a bit more fun now. Or the the Skaven players, they've got more options with the Renegades version 2. Like they're all fresh and ready to play with. So I want people to enjoy their legacy stuff if they've got it, instead of being the forgotten child.
Yeah, definitely. I think that the rules may not be perfect yet, and they're still being like tweaked and tuned. Maybe they're too strong or they're not strong enough, but they give people the opportunity to use a lot more of their collections than they would otherwise. Some of the legacies lists are really limiting, and the new Renegades give you a lot more options, which is that's what
Yeah,
we all want out of Warhammer, right? Is to play with our toys.
exactly. That's what I want people to be able to do. One thing I would ask though is if you are bringing a legacy faction, just make sure you've got the rules quickly to hand, ideally printed off. Just you can hand it over. But if you prefer to use your device, then just make sure it's like downloaded on your phone, so you're not fumbling around for it. Just to help people out that aren't familiar with it, because it is all new. That's the only sort of ask I'll put on those players.
Sounds good. Let's move on to the missions. So Ben's lovingly crafted a few missions for us to play, but before we get to those, let's look at terrain. We're going to be placing our own terrain, old school.
Yeah, just means that everyone everyone get everyone gets an opportunity to build the battlefield to a degree. There is some randomness built in, so you'll roll your deployment side, and then you'll roll to place terrain with the winner placing the first piece. There's some rules in there around where it can't be when you place it, and then there's some scatter once you've placed all the pieces. So you can roll 2d6 and scour each terrain piece. You don't have to move your pieces that you place. You can move your opponents to try and get an edge on them, and it's a 2d6 affair. So there's a good chance it'll be going in some direction, but it might just stay put. So it's a bit different. I think that I read this in a UKTC pack. I think Richard wrote those, so shout out to him. Warp and Take Gaming, I think it is. So I ripped it from that, and I really enjoyed the idea of it. So I've implemented it. Hopefully, everyone will get what they want, or a degree of what they want to play on a battlefield with this rule.
And there's a nice handy table for you to use to quickly reference what different terrain pieces are and count as for line of sight, movement, etc. So keep the pack handy on the day, as a lot of people play these terrain pieces differently.
Yeah, I'll have a full pack printed off and carrying around with me. So if you have a question, I'll have it. But I'm hoping to have some desk documents for you, so you've got something to hand for the main bits.
And a big thing about this is the scatter allowing terrain to be within the 12 inches of the center. I do like going to events where there's pre-placed terrain, but they always get moved around over the course of an event. And the issue with going with the terrain setup rules within the rule book is that without having that 12-inch of the center of the table, you often end up with lanes in a fantasy rank and flank game. And while lanes are appropriate for something like 40k where everything's skirmish and shooting at each other, it feels like it can often be restrictive when you're trying to flank someone within your rank and flank game, and there is a building on either side of the center of the table. So I think this should allow for some tables that'll be more fun to play on, hopefully.
Yeah, and they can bump each other as well. So like you could create a massive block of terrain if you decide to move your pieces of terrain closer to each other, create a massive line of sight blocking area. If you're against a shooting army, they're obviously going to try and move it away, but there's that opportunity to gain an advantage in the table placement. And the rounds are a little bit longer to account for this. They're 3-hour rounds, so you do have a little bit more wiggle room at the start to get this down in a manner that's appropriate.
Looks like it'll be good fun. And then we get on to the victory points. So most of these are things you already know: Dead and Fled, King is Dead, Trophies of War, Scenario Objectives, and Special Features. These are ones you're, I'm sure, very familiar with, and the scenario objectives will be explained in each of the missions. And then we've also got Allied General. That's a nice little 50 points for killing the second general in your opponent's army, which is nice.
Yeah, I think I clarified that because I think rules is written. It's another general kill, which
Yes,
is a bit savage. So I thought it's a reduced point list. You can have less protection. It doesn't penalize you for bringing a solo general. If you want to bring something a bit tastier that runs around doing some work, gives you an option. One thing here though is that victory point table is a little bit different to what you might normally see. This I think was cooked up by Pash a while back, and it has quite different bandings for score that scale differently. So it's worth keeping an eye on that for your end of game scoring as well.
Yeah, it's the one that we used. I think is Six Nations, right, for a slightly larger points tournament as well. And what it means is that getting that 20-0 is difficult, like it should be. You have to get all of the objectives, kill the whole army, get the general, capture, not just run people off. We have to capture their banners as well to really push to the high scores. It makes a big difference. Definitely.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping that this table does all the work, right? I don't want to put massive point swings on objectives. I think that objectives are great; they should give you a benefit for winning them, but I don't want to force people to bring massive blocks to block down on an objective. I'd like you to be a bit more free with, actually, I can beat him by just killing his army, playing old-fashioned Warhammer, and then other defensive players can go, actually, I want to, take an objective and hold an area and mitigate some of the loss. So it just gives a bit more flexibility in the banding. So hopefully no one gets 20-0'd. It'd be very difficult, I think, but I won't say, never say never. I imagine there'll be quite close games, some of them.
I got a terrible feeling that my army is very 20-0able. Please, nobody try.
It could do a 20-0 as well, so it's interesting.
It could. There's a chance. Let's go into these missions. So, flank attack. This is the old role for where your ally is coming in this version, right?
Yeah, so all the missions have been themed around the allies. So where there's anything coming in from an ambush or a secondary deployment that is not determined by you, it's a full allied force. So in this one, like you said, one of the flanks, which you're choosing secret as per the mission, that will be your allied force. So it'll all be on the table, but you will not have a select X units. It'll be the whole lot goes there, play on. Takes a little bit of the time out of setting up, but gives a theme to the list, theme to the pack as well.
It should be good fun. I think this is just a standard game, really, right? It's victory points to win. No real changes. It's just a deployment.
Yeah, that's it. So I wanted a nice simple one to start you off. You'll be thinking about placing terrain probably a little bit longer on your first game because it'll be new. Something you're familiar with right from the off-flank attack. Everyone's done it probably tens of times. So, get straight into the fighting.
Yeah, and then so onto the second game, we've got an attack and defense game. So you do a roll off before anything else happens to determine who's the attacker.
Yes, it's each player rolls d6 with the winner being the attacker. So it's not a choice. It's a you win, you are attacking. I don't want to give the winner. I don't want to give a winner the roll off an advantage. I just want to make it an easy, right? You roll, you win. And you're an attacker. It's an asymmetrical mission. Something that I think is not been much of in a mission packs because obviously symmetry allows for balance, but it's quite heavily themed pack. It's not really going to be balanced in the standard, tournament scene meta. So I thought an opportunity to try something new, see how it goes down, get some feedback from players afterwards, see if they liked it. It's a little bit more complicated setting up. This one has this one is a special mission from the Arcane Journal. I believe it's the Bretonian one that's been adapted, which adds a hill and a wall that you get to place anywhere you want as long as it touches your hill. So it can come out to the side, it can go on, it can come at an angle, and then your attacker, if you're the attacker, your allied force will come in as reinforcements in the compulsory move phase other than turn 1. And so the defender then has to decide how they deploy, which are you going to come in on against their weak side? Are you going to try and overwhelm? There's lots of decisions to make. A bit more interesting.
All right, mission 3, A Clash of Kings. So you'll set up the train as usual, and then what have we got? This is hunting down enemy generals, is that right?
Yeah, so you'll have a central objective in this one, and then if you kill an enemy general, they drop an objective marker where they die, and then that becomes an objective as well. So you could potentially get up to 5 if it's a bit of a bloodbath. Just depends how aggressive or defensive you want to play. Usually generals are pretty potent pieces for the fight, and you're going to want them in the mix. So there's some decision making to happen there as well.
Yeah, it's really good fun. I like the idea that you can't, if you kill that general and you overrun to chase off his unit or something, you need to bring something up to hold where he fell. Otherwise, you're gonna lose out on the extra 300 points, worth much more than the general was himself in lots of cases.
Yeah, it's the end of the game as well, so you've got an opportunity to circle back round. It's just this is another Arcane Journal mission that's been adapted, and I think this is a Tomb Kings one, so it was just interesting enough to not be complicated.
This is the Glory of the Road or whatever it's called, right? This is where Tomb Kings are fighting each other over the roads that go to the pyramids. It's
yeah, really cool, and they could be resurrected, so they want to protect the body and stuff like this. But I thought allied force, 2 generals, loads of objectives. Like some people are going to be not, some players aren't going to be at the end of the day aren't going to be winning, and so they might just go, do you know what? Let's just smash things in the middle and see what happens, and it could be a bit more of a fun end game. So.
Yes, it feels like a nice simple finish to the day as well, right? Let's just go crunch in the center and fight each other's generals.
Yeah, and that's what we want. We want people to have fun, different missions, experience a different type of event.
Yeah, I think these missions they're gonna add something on top of the already new and different lists. So I'm excited to play them. But let's move on to the comp. All right, so moving on to the comp document, lovingly crafted by Ben as well. This details rules changes outside of just what Games Workshop have adjusted. And the first one is that match play adjustment that we mentioned earlier.
Yeah, just the clarification. My attitude towards this comp pack was, if I kept it outside of the main pack, I could make the adjustments if things were quite clearly wrong or needed adjustment. And I've dated the last update there, 31st to the 5th. So I will probably do a quick pass on this this week, but I don't think much is going to change unless an FAQ drops. But yes, first one is the match play adjustment. So nice and clear for you.
Yeah, this is just what we spoke about earlier. It's an increased unit cap for units within unit point cap for units within the allied force, which means I think this came from me trying to bring ogre allies, Ben, and going, mate, I can't play with any of the units because they all start 150 points. I think I could have 3 ogres in a unit. That was my cap. And so this just means that there's more options for units, right? We didn't want to limit you to only bringing a handful of units from your roster.
Yeah, it's exactly that. You're not going to have fun if you can only bring 3 ogres in an ogre allied detachment, are you? So it just tidies that up. And again, I think it became very apparent when I had other people asking me about the limitations. The only people that were happy, funnily enough, were the renegade crowns with their cheapest chips bodies and
yeah.
and happy gun boys. So yeah, it's definitely a good clarification, I think. So apologies to those who have missed this and maybe wrote something slightly different, but you've got an opportunity to get that sorted there.
Yeah, and then we move into some general rules, and a lot of these are things that just make some sense or put limits on things that are maybe a bit oppressive. So auras and abilities not stacking. These are things of the same name. So the example here is good. Necrotech's Eternal Taskmaster giving you an additional attack. No, you should not be able to bring 6 Necrotechs and have 7 attacks in the front row of your Toon Guard. That feels very silly. Similarly, with things like Mortis engines giving you multiple initiative and movement bonuses for having more than one of them. I think this is it's a good limitation.
A common sense one, right? And I think this is something we'll probably see in an FAQ, but for now, it's comp, and it'll benefit everyone. I think everyone will appreciate having it there.
The max strength of any unit being 40 of unit strength is mostly there because of the damn Tomb Kings players. But you know what? I was bringing 40 state troops earlier, so I can't complain too much about it. I think that this is just a good limitation, especially with less than 2,000 points. You know, we don't want some unkillable 80-man brick of skeletons ruining the fun of the day.
Yeah, it doesn't stop the dreaded Death Star units, but it does put limits on them for, like, unit strength. They're not impossible to deal with at that size. It's still difficult, right? It's still a big block of men, but you'll see more classic looking armies with this, like blocks of men that move around, and a lot more psychology will happen as a result, rippling through the army. So this one I like. It's a personal taste, I think. So I've indulged myself with that, but I'm hoping everyone sees the benefit of it.
Well, I think most people's armies already fit within this, and it only stops a few outliers that often don't make the game as interactive. So I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Cannons, as an Empire player, I hate when people nerf cannons, but cannons cannot overshoot or bounce past line of sight blocking terrain, as it should be. You shouldn't be able to shoot your cannon at something that you cannot see, whether that's through a building or a woods or the opposite side of a hill. I think it makes obvious sense, right? This is how I'm sure most people already played cannons before they were introduced to some of the silly rules.
Yeah, I never thought I'd have to write a rule like this, if I'm honest. But it like you said, it's a common sense one. If someone wants to hide from a cannon, they should be allowed to. If they are going to go into the woods, though, fair game, right? You can shoot that unit, you can see it, and it's not past the line of sight blocking terrain. So it's a common sense change, I think, that stops all the shenanigans. But cannons are scary; they should be respected, but they should not be abused.
Definitely. I'm going to skip one just to go over a quick one, which is max unit width. 12 for the vast majority of units and 6 for monstrous and chariot units. Again, I think it makes sense with the way in which movement and fighting ranks works. I appreciate that Linehammer isn't as bad as it used to be, but it is still really powerful with things that aren't dwarves. So this makes complete sense. I think this is just another thing that will probably appear in FAQ at some point.
Yeah, again, it's a common sense change. It stops that player right at the end of the game reforming 30 wide and taking an objective they had no reason to have before. That's where it gets abused most. So having a fixed number, which is quite clear and quite generous, I'd say, still gives you a good width for your big blocks.
Yeah, definitely. And then a fun one, some bombardment changes. And this takes some inspiration from rules from older editions and even other versions of Warhammer, like 40k or SRC. And I think it's important because since the addition of risks being hit in Old World, and if you aren't familiar with what that is that templates in Old World only have a 50% chance of hitting you if your base isn't entirely covered. And with the increase to base sizes, template weapons actually became really ineffective. Your small blast going from 20 mils to 25 mils can only really fully cover 6 with the best possible shot that you can get, and you're very likely to only have 2 or 3 fully covered, and then you only get a 50% chance to hit the rest. So not making them inaccurate and not hit the things that they hit has made template weapons generally pretty rarely seen in Old World. I think I've used a breath weapon 2 times in the last 3 years for Old World. And I certainly haven't seen very much out of stone throwers other than trying to use the hole to kill monsters. So this is a much needed buff to help them out, I think.
Yeah, and I'm encouraging that sort of behavior. Right, I don't want to, as much as I do think cannons are important. I'd love to see people bring in Cygors or, the old catapult and Tomb Kings or Trebuchet, right? When having them be effective in an actual game instead of 100 points that you're throwing in just to soften your list. It just adds some more options for the players. If they have those models, they get to play with them. The amendment to the indirect rule, if I I wrote it a while back, but I'm pretty sure that just puts it back to how it was. So it's the normal indirect rule.
Yeah,
But
so the short, nice way of explaining this is that if your artillery crew can see the unit and does not roll a hit, you can reduce the scatter by the ballistic skill of the unit, which is very useful. And indirect fire remains the same as it was; it always scatters, and you can only reduce the distance by rolling a hit while it's indirect, which is the same as the rules are now. All this does is allow artillery and bombardment units to be able to hit slightly more regularly, and hopefully it makes a few more units, even if not competitive, it makes them viable to use.
yeah, exactly. It does stack with the Goblin launcher dude. I can't remember his name, but
The Doom
that will
Diver.
the Doom Diver. It does stack, but because of the point size for the armies, they can only bring one of those because it's 1 per 1,000, and you can't have 2. So if someone does bring it, you're only going to see 1, but they're going to be a little bit more effective. Just a heads up on that if you're playing an Orcs and Goblins player. But yeah, I'm hoping that people bring Stone Throwers, Cygors, Trebuchets, the whole hog instead of
I got
just
a great feeling that there'll be at least 5 bombardment units at the event. It should be good.
I would hope so. I'd like to see at least half the armies have Bombard if they've if they've got the opportunity just to test this out, see if it's good.
Definitely. So let's move into some of the comp for the armies, starting with the Force of Fantasy. My beloved Empire up first, removing skirmishes from Outriders. As a big known player, I can see why this is needed. It's a very powerful unit, having 360 line of sight and the ability to stand and shoot in any direction. Their massive number of shots it's very powerful. And when we want people to have some more fun and try some new units, it's probably a good idea to tone down some of the oppressive shooting.
Exactly. It doesn't take away all their teeth. They still got great guns. They're still quick. They can still turn at the end of their movement. It's just that skirmisher 360 line of sight in uninteractive play is what I'm trying to cut a little bit out of. It might be a bit too heavy-handed, but I do think that you'll see more interest in this as a result.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea for a friendly event like this for sure. As a man who owns many Outriders, I appreciate that they're often not fun to play against.
Yeah, we want people to have fun.
Now, something that is fun to play against is a Hellstorm rocket battery. I imagine everyone watching this video has never seen one on the table before because they are useless, and they have always been useless in probably every version of Fantasy that they have been since they've been released. I think that was 6th edition, 6th, 7th, 8th, and Old World now. Pretty terrible. And this is a nice buff which allows them to both be benefited by the bombardment rule and also now no longer die every time they shoot. So in Old World, it was changed to every rocket fired had the ability to misfire, including wounding yourself. And so it was entirely possible that a Hellstorm, when it fires, does 3 wounds to itself and it dies. And this sort of brings it closer to what the Hellfire volley gun is, in which the first fire makes it less accurate. The second misfire is the actual misfire and causes a fault and you roll on the table. But 3 misfires, meaning that you fire 3 rockets and then d6 more, and they're really inaccurate, but it fires loads of shots and then dies. And that seems like good fun. Important thing to note, if you do bring one, you do need to roll the 3 misfires before you do anything else, just so you know how many more shots or the distance it's going to scatter before you resolve the first rocket.
Yeah, it's exactly that. So the FAQ does have the order of operations sort of outlined a bit clearer to give you the best chance to do this correctly. But you're spot on. I've ripped this pretty much from, you know, the Hellblaster. Its risk to reward was not worth bringing. Like you said, it's garbage if you don't have something a bit more interesting attached to it. There's less risk, but it's got, you know, a lot more variables that can go along with it. If they'd made this like a, you know, an absolute destroyer of units and it blew itself up pretty much every time that it wiped something out, I'd say it'd probably be a better way to go. But this is just a bit more tame, the way I've decided to go.
Yeah, definitely. I think that it's a unit you almost can't use in the base game, so it needed something to be able to be played with. So I'm excited that we'll hopefully see some on the weekend. Dwarves are up next, and this is another fairly big change. Is that dig in is only usable by the expeditionary force in their own player's turn.
Yeah, it's with the allies as well. You're probably going to be bringing something a bit quicker. You're less reliant on that dig in. So I want it to be a decision you make in your turn, not a decision you make in your opponent's turn. I know dwarves aren't in the best spot, but the allies might take the sting out of it. And you know, with Bombard improving, you might see different types of lists again. So
Definitely, and it's one of those like uninteractive things like you talked about, right? It's a buff with almost no downsides because the downside to dig in is that you can't move or you lose the buff, but you can move because you can just use it in your opponent's turn. It feels like there's no commitment to using it, and now it's an actual choice that a dwarf player can make. And this is also followed by a reduction in the total number of gyrocopters you'll see in any combined list. I think we'll see a few more of these for like outlier units that you end up seeing all over the place.
Yeah, again, encouraging diverse armies. I don't want to see, you know, the meta list just pop in and blast everyone away. I want people to come and have their fun toy, but to a limited capacity and bring something else alongside it. So, like you said, removing uninteractive rules and limiting those really meta choices. I know the dwarves aren't in a good spot, but in the future, I'm hoping they get the lift they want. But this is just to manage that, unfortunately.
Yeah, makes sense. Bretonnia is up next, starting with the Green Knight. The Green Knight has lots of different comps already in competitive events of people choosing to change him in different ways. And we've gone with the Green Knight cannot charge the turn it arrives on the battlefield. But this does mean that you will not get points for him unless he is dead at the end of the game, I believe.
Yeah, it's that one. You know, for me, it's the Green Knight has to be potent, but charging straight from a rival doesn't give a lot of players a chance to react. And if you can't manage that very well, it feels really bad. The points are nice to get, but that initial interaction can feel bad. I know it's how he's always kind of operated, but I didn't want to bash him too hard. But he did need something to manage him a little bit.
Yeah, there's a few different ways people have come around to of limiting him in some respect, and I think any one of those rules is fine. I don't necessarily like it when people combine them. I think it maybe is a bit too much for him, but I think this makes him a lot fairer, especially with player place terrain. Player place terrain makes the Green Knight substantially more powerful. If
you'll see a lot
if you
of
get the
that
right side of the table.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. He just needs that edge taken off him in this regard. We've got the Bard of Pegasus as well, similar limitations to the gyrocopters and just scout gyrocopters. 6 models total. That includes your character mounts for your entire list. So if you bring in allies, Bretonnian allies with your Bretonnian main force, you're getting 6 pegs. Barded Pegasus specifically. Now that the Royal Pegs have been toned down by Games Workshop themselves.
Yeah, I think this is an obvious choice. You see most Bretonian lists comparatively are how many Pegasus Knights can I fit outside of core, which is going to be peasants. And
Yeah,
so this means that we'll hopefully see more horses on the battlefield, which is what a Bretonian army I feel like is supposed to look like.
love to see it.
We got high elves, no changes. They don't need to be toned down. They don't need to be buffed up.
Hmm.
Wood elves, just being able to ignore the required glade guards. So if you do want to have like a more themed list around dryads, etc., you can do that.
Yeah, that's more for the primary force. If your main force, if you're bringing wood elves, you don't need that glade guard unit. You can lean into trees, maybe. I don't know, whatever floats your boat.
Today we've got a 1-1-2 ratio, so you can choose two of any, but you can then only have one of the others when it comes to any mounted Shigengan character. Sky lanterns, all Sky Lantern mounts, and grand cannons. So you're only going to get 4 of the oppressively nightmarish toys. They'll still be really good, so I wouldn't worry too much about it.
Yeah, I think this could even be considered too light in some opinions. They're the boogeyman of old world at the moment, and now with their new units as well, having every rule under the sun. Uh, I think Cathay players are struggling to make friends, but they're lovely models. I don't blame anyone for wanting them. Playing with the toys while they're strong is the point. Um, this might just tone them down a little bit. You won't see 3 shugs or you know alongside 2 cannons and blah blah blah. So just a ratio to manage that instead. I thought that was the fairest way to go.
Well, I'm hoping this also means we'll see some of the other beautiful Cathay models that don't get played with enough, right? They have a lot of gorgeous models that we sadly don't see too much of because those 3 units, one, they cost a lot of points, but they also are worth it. So they end up with quite small forces.
Yeah, I'd love to see Sentinels. I'd love to see the rocket launcher thing. I don't even know what it is. I've probably seen it once
It's
on a table.
actually incredible, by the way. So it's a stone thrower with 2 modes of fire. One is more like a mortar that causes panic checks at -1, similar to like a hell cannon, but it's a large template. And the secondary one is more like a typical stone thrower, but it is one of the only units in the game that still does D6 damage, like I think the Trebuchet still does D6 damage as
Yeah,
well, possibly. But
yeah.
I mean, the Cathay one can fire twice a turn and use the line of sight of a flying chariot, so it's a little bit better than
Well,
Trebuchet.
maybe I made them good by accident, so you might see a couple if Cathay players have
they,
got them. But yeah.
I think that they're outshone by cannons by a significant amount, but they are good. I don't think there's anything bad in any of the Cathay units, so you can't we couldn't tone down everything, right? We need people to stoke up and play with
Yeah, I want people to have their fun. All right, and if their fun comes in a limited flavor with these ratios, then have your fun elsewhere by all means. That's the spirit of the comp of the list building. So you can have some people that are chasing the win, and some of them might play Cathay. So we'll see. But you still got guns, right? Lots of
it.
guns.
Lots of them. All right,
Uh,
ravening hordes, the
yeah,
bad guys.
yeah, not too bad here, unfortunately for the Ravening Hordes, or fortunately. So just to tidy up on the Chaos Lord. Doesn't get the +1 combat res for being unit strength 10, close order, just to manage him a little bit. And then the Tomb Kings got the limited to 6 Great Bow Shabti in the entire list because they're massively undercosted. The one I like to use as a comparison for that is the Goblin Bolt Thrower. It's, I think, the same points as a Shabti Great Bow and suffers like 6 downsides for
I'd also
pleasure
like
being
to
a Goblin.
point out that the Goblin Bolt Thrower is also an incredibly cost-effective unit, just to show how out of whack Ushabti are. A unit
Yeah.
of 10 Ushabti being a semi-unkillable, kills everything unit is nightmarish. So I'm very glad this has happened. Um,
Yeah, I think I think that's a common sense change for Tomb Kings. Nothing else there, the main comp has limited that to a degree. In hindsight, I might have put a few more restrictions in, but we're here where we are now, so we'll live with it.
we'll see. I know there's a couple of Tomb Kings players coming, but I think they've got some fun lists, so it should be
Yeah,
fun.
I know.
legacy factions. So they're using the Renegades V2 comp, which is linked at the top of this document. There's not too many changes here. Lizardmen still being allowed to use slams is good because that's their only, what we would consider to be a Lord level caster. Still being allowed is good.
Yeah, I think that's the obvious one. I don't think they get the opportunity to take a level 3.
No.
I think that might change with the Renegade pack, but you can't not have the opportunity to take a Slam Mage if you're a Lizardman player. So if we do see any, they they can bring their Slam.
Fingers crossed we get a Lizardman player. That'd be good to see. And the other one is Vampire Canes. So there is an additional change to the Renegade pack. Currently, the Vampires are on Renegades V1 as we speak. There's a possibility that V2 will come out in the next week or so.
I'm holding off as long as I possibly can. If it's not by Friday, I think we're going to be ending up with Legacy or Renegade version 1 Vampires.
Yeah.
If it does come and it fixes this rule, which is the Wailing Dirge, then I'll remove this most likely. But as it stands, this is how I've decided is the fairest way to use the rule.
Yeah. So for people who haven't seen it, in the Renegade pack, the Wailing Dirge is nerfed in a way which restricts who you can use it on and when you can use it to some minor degree. It's still an incredibly powerful ability, but Ben has also changed it where the leadership test is unmodified, which means you can't stack the 3 spells to give yourself -5 total to leadership instead. It's just always -2.
Yeah, and I think this fixes the problem, if I'm completely honest. It's an abused, cheap model with a really powerful rule, and you can get it across multiple units. So stacking your debuffs is great for your fear and your terror, absolutely still useful. But I think stacking it with these Wailing Dirge, like just kill you based on failed leadership tests, is a bit unfair for models that really shouldn't suffer harshly from it, like Bretonnian Lords. They probably want to go into that sort of stuff, but getting shot down because someone screamed at them, not very bold. High elves and stuff like that, they really shouldn't just melt to these things. So I think that fixes it. Your leadership's good, you'll be okay. Your leadership's bad, you won't be. Who knows? I don't know if we've got any vampire counts come in. I'm hoping they don't think that's too harsh, but we'll see.
Okay, they get to win every other event with Cathay. I'm sure they can take one for the team in this one.
Maybe they'll bring a vampire instead of Wailing Dirge Necromancer. I'd love to see a vampire in a vampires count list. Just blender Lord style, right?
Well, this is the sad thing about vampires now, Ben. There is no longer a blender Lord. The vampiric powers which remain in the game are only to do with leadership. There is one to do with toughness, and there's one to do with becoming a wizard. All of the good old red thirst and quick blood, etc. Those days are gone. There are no more blood dragon vampire counts. The main thing that really squashes them is that a vampire count is leadership 8. Your general only being leadership 8 is really sad. I'm not sure why they decided to reduce vampire counts so harshly, but it's the world that we live in. Hopefully Renegades V2 does something to remedy that.
Yeah, they absolutely will. Like I said earlier, Val's working with people that love these armies, and he's absorbing it. He's taking it through past editions. I think he brought back the Build-A-Bear Slan Mage in his Renegade version 2, so I'm confident you get a vampire Build-A-Bear version, right?
Yeah, I'd be really excited to see it again. It was one of those. A lot of armies in Old World feel similar to what vampire counts used to, which is a bunch of chaff filled with a few very powerful characters who do the heavy lifting. And that's something that actually, of all things, Old World, that's a very common theme in lists. And vampires actually don't really have that anymore. Other than spellcasters, most of the power comes from Graveguard or Screams, and they've really lost that punch and fear of, oh my god, if I charge that unit of skeletons with a vampire in it, he's gonna ruin my front rank. That fear is gone.
Well, hopefully the fear comes back. They're still potent, right? I haven't made huge changes to what you can do with them. I know the Renegades version 1 did some fixing, but This is just, I think, manages the screens a bit more effectively, because you could end up with a Vampire Count ally, and they could have 3 Banshees in it, right? And you're just suffering that.
Exactly. Yeah, these are like they're still a very powerful army. They are just going to be a slightly more interactive one. They're gonna have to fight you rather than just make you roll a bunch of leadership tests. So it should be a more exciting game.
100%. That's the aim. The aim is to remove those uninteractive, unfun things. You can't get rid of it all. But I just want to bring things down a little bit, encourage a different thought process on what you're looking to put in your list. And I think the list size, I think the list size of 1800 limits a lot of the choices you get. It kind of comps itself, because you don't get those 1 per 1,000 twice. You have to look outside of that range. So I think it kind of does its own little bit of comp there, which people are probably discovering as they build lists. The feedback I've got is it's incredibly challenging, but it's fun.
It's made it different, right? This will be a different event to all of the other ones you go to all year, which is exciting. I know I'm really looking forward to it. I'm bringing something I might never use this exact army again, because I don't know if it will fit in many others. But I am looking forward to it. Should be good.
Yeah, and that's if people have, if they've got toys from previous editions which they haven't dusted off, right, and they get the opportunity to, like I don't think I've seen a Cygor outside of a friendly game, or something a bit weirder, like I'd love to see a cockatrice. I'd love to see anything that's got bombarding. There's loads of things that I want people to see on the table that they never do, because they're playing quite competitive events, and let's be honest, you do need certain things to remain competitive. Even if you're trying to mix it up a little bit, you'll always find you have your little safety net of, if you're a Brett player, a bunch of pegs, right? You're always going to have a unit in there. I try to go without them once, and you really need them to be competitive in any form. So I run a small unit now, but the aim is to get you away from that and having a bit more fun with your list creation. That's all I really wanted. Just something different.
Yeah, I think we've managed to achieve that for this event, Ben. Well done.
Cool, thanks. We'll have more comp discussions coming, I'm sure, in the future, but we'll keep them under wraps for now, I guess.
Yeah, I expect, well, you're planning on running another event similar to this, maybe without allies or something you mentioned earlier. I ran Old World Wonders not too long ago, and we'll start to run those more regularly, one-day events with a small amount of comp to try and encourage just some fun lists for single dayers. Yeah, we'll keep you up to date on the channel around comp discussions and upcoming events. And I'm sure you'll see some sort of a list review or after action report from us on how this went.
Absolutely. That's what this channel is going to do. It's going to give you the local events in South Wales, North Wales. It's just, Cardiff's our base, so that's the name. But it will get the surrounding areas. We'll make sure you're aware of things. We'll run through some packs. If you have any feedback for what you want to see in these reviews, like how to approach missions in future or big events, that how to deal with certain things, or we can always bring them in. We've got a couple of Welsh players that will join in on the discussion, give you some really cutting edge advice. Yeah, just watch the space, subscribe to the channel if you want to keep up to date with the local tournaments and what they're offering, and the list reviews if you go in, and then the reviews after if you didn't and you just want to catch up.
Yeah, well, thanks for listening, everyone. I hope to see you next weekend.
Cheers all. Cheers, Owen.
Cheers, Ben.